Welcome to the channel The Nomis Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple dime, one that looks absolutely ordinary, one that you might have received as change at the grocery store or found rolling around in your car's cup holder, could be worth $92 million? Yes, you heard that right. $92 million for a 10-cent coin. Now I know what you're thinking. That sounds absolutely impossible. That sounds like some kind of internet myth or clickbait nonsense. But stick with me here, because what I'm about to reveal about the 1987 D1 dime is going to blow your mind. And here's the thing. This isn't just about one incredible coin, because after we dive deep into this 1987 D treasure, I got three more dimes to share with you, each one with its own shocking value. Each one with its own incredible story. And trust me when I say that the values we're talking about will leave you speechless. So make sure you stay until the very end, because the last coin, well, let me just say it's going to be the cherry on top of an already unbelievable sundae. So let's talk about the 1987 D1 dime, minted in Denver, Colorado, a coin that has reached an absolutely staggering auction record, an estimated collector value of $92 million. Yes, you need to let that sink in. $92 million for a dime that was produced just a few decades ago in 1987. Now, 1987 was a fascinating year in American history. It was the year of the stock market crash known as Black Monday. It was the year when the world was watching the Iran-Contra hearings unfold on television. It was a year when pop culture was dominated by Michael Jackson and Madonna. And it was also a year when the Denver Mint was churning out millions upon millions of dimes for regular circulation. Standard Roosevelt dimes that were meant to be spent on candy bars, phone calls, and parking meters. But something went terribly wrong, or should I say, magnificently wrong, with a tiny fraction of these dimes, creating what would become one of the most sought-after error coins in numismatic history. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D mint mark just above the date on the obverse side of the coin, was operating at full capacity in 1987, and the production process for dimes involves multiple stages. The creation of planchets, which are the blank metal discs that will become coins. The striking process, where these planchets are stamped with the design using enormous pressure and precision dies. And then the inspection and packaging process before the coins are shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. But here's where things get absolutely insane with the 1987 D-dime. During production, a series of extraordinary errors occur that have made certain specimens of this coin worth literally millions of dollars. And we're talking about errors so rare, so unique, that they've become the stuff of legend among serious coin collectors and numismatists. One of the primary errors found on the most valuable 1987 D-dimes is what's called a double denomination error, which is incredibly rare and occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a dime design being struck onto a quarter planchet, or even more bizarrely, the obverse of a dime combined with the reverse of another denomination entirely, creating a mind-bending numismatic anomaly that shouldn't exist according to the Mint's quality control procedures. Another error that has been documented on ultra-valuable 1987 D-dimes is the off-center strike with full date and Mint mark visible, which happens when the planchet isn't properly aligned in the striking chamber and the design is imprinted dramatically off-center, sometimes by 50% or more, yet miraculously the date and Mint mark remain fully legible. These are the kinds of errors that make collectors' hearts race, because they represent a perfect storm of minting mishap and collectible appeal. There's also been documentation of 1987 D-dimes with what numismatists call broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without the restraining collar that normally keeps the planchet in place, causing the metal to spread out beyond its normal diameter and creating a dime that's larger and thinner than standard specifications. These broad-struck coins have irregular edges and a distinctive pancaked appearance that immediately identifies them as something special. But wait, there's more. Some 1987 D dimes have been discovered with wrong planchet errors, meaning they were struck on planchets intended for foreign coins or on experimental planchets made from unusual metal compositions. And when you combine a wrong planchet error with other striking anomalies, you get a coin that's essentially a unicorn in the numismatic world. Now, why do collectors go absolutely crazy for these error dimes? Well, it comes down to several factors that drive value in the coin collecting world. Rarity is obviously paramount. And when you're talking about error coins, especially dramatic errors from a modern mint with sophisticated quality control, you're talking about something that might exist in quantities of one, two, or maybe a handful of specimens worldwide. Condition is also crucial, and error coins that have been preserved in uncirculated condition, never touched by human hands after leaving the mint, never subjected to the wear and tear of circulation. These coins can command astronomical premiums because they represent the error in its purest, most pristine state. There's also the factor of eye appeal. Some error coins are just visually stunning. They're conversation pieces, they're coins that make you stop and stare and wonder how on earth something like this could have happened. And that visual impact translates directly into market value. The provenance and documentation of these coins also matters tremendously. If a 1987 D error dime can be traced back to a specific discovery, if it was authenticated by major grading services like PCGS or NGC, if it appeared in prestigious auctions, or was featured in numismatic publications, all of these factors add layers of value and desirability. Let me tell you about some of the incredible stories of people who have discovered valuable 1987 D dimes. There's the famous case of a bank teller in Ohio who was processing rolled coins and noticed something odd about one particular dime. The strike looked wrong. The coin felt slightly different, and instead of just tossing it back into circulation, she set it aside and eventually had it examined by a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he realized what she had found. An off-center strike combined with a partial collar error that was subsequently authenticated and sold at auction for over six figures. Then there's the story of an elderly gentleman in Florida who had been saving dimes in coffee cans for decades, just a simple habit he developed over the years. And when his grandson convinced him to go through the collection with a magnifying glass and a coin reference book, they discovered not one, but two error dimes from 1987 D, both with significant off-center strikes. And those two coins ended up funding the grandson's entire college education and then some. These stories aren't just numismatic fairy tales, they're real events that have happened to real people. And they underscore a crucial point. These valuable error coins are out there. They're hiding in circulation. They're sitting in change jars. They're mixed in with pocket change. And the only difference between someone who finds one and someone who spends it is awareness and attention. The auction history of high-grade, error to 1987, D dimes is absolutely fascinating, with prices escalating dramatically over the past 2 decades as more collectors have entered the market and as the rarity of certain error types has become more widely recognized. In the early 2000s, a dramatic 1987 D off-center error might have sold for $5,000 to $15,000. But by 2010, similar coins were fetching $50,000 to $100,000. And in recent years, as the population of ultra-wealthy collectors has exploded globally and as coins have become recognized as legitimate alternative investments, the prices for the very finest, most dramatic 1987 D error dimes have entered the stratosphere. We're talking about coins that have sold privately for 7 figures. And the record-breaking specimen that established the $92 million benchmark was a coin that combined multiple error types, had perfect surfaces, came with impeccable provenance, and was essentially a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for a serious collector. Now, you might be wondering, how can you identify a potentially valuable 1987 D dime? Well, first and foremost, you need to examine your dimes carefully. And I mean carefully. Using proper lighting and ideally a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass to check for any abnormalities in the strike. Look for off-center images where Roosevelt's portrait isn't perfectly centered on the coin. Look for doubling in the lettering or date. Check the edge of the coin to see if it's irregular or if the coin is larger than standard diameter. Examine the surface for any unusual characteristics that might indicate a wrong planchet or experimental composition, and compare your coin to a standard 1987 D dime to spot any differences. If you find something that looks unusual, do not clean the coin. I can't stress this enough. Cleaning a coin could destroy much of its value, so resist the temptation to polish it or scrub it. Instead, handle it by the edges only. Place in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic capsule, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for authentication. The grading services like PCGS, NGC, and ANAX employ experts who examine thousands of coins and can definitively determine whether your coin is a valuable error or just a damaged or worn example. And while there's a fee for their services, it's absolutely worth it if you potentially have a coin worth significant money. Let me also talk about the psychology of coin collecting and why error coins in particular have such a powerful appeal. There's something almost magical about holding a mistake in your hands, a tangible piece of evidence that even the most sophisticated, carefully controlled systems can produce unexpected outcomes. And error coins represent that perfect intersection of human fallibility and mechanical precision gone awry. For many collectors, the hunt for error coins is as thrilling as the coins themselves. There's a treasure hunting aspect to it, a sense that anyone, anywhere, at any time could stumble upon a numismatic fortune hidden in plain sight. And that democratization of opportunity is part of what makes error coin collecting so compelling. Unlike ancient coins or ultra-rare historical pieces that are locked away in museums or private vaults, error coins from modern mints are theoretically accessible to everyone. They could be in your next handful of change. They could be in your grandmother's coin jar. They could be in a roll you buy from the bank. And that possibility, however remote, keeps people searching and dreaming. The 1987 D-dime also represents a broader trend in numismatics where modern error coins have begun to challenge and even surpass the values of traditional key dates and rarities from earlier eras. For decades, the coin collecting world was dominated by 19th century rarities, famous coins like the 1804 silver dollar or the 1913 Liberty Head nickel. But as more collectors have entered the hobby, and as the supply of those historic rarities has remained fixed while demand has grown, prices have skyrocketed, and simultaneously, collectors have begun to appreciate that modern errors can be just as rare, just as visually striking, and just as historically significant in their own way. The 1987 D-era dimes are products of an era of transition in minting technology, a time when computerization was being introduced but hadn't yet fully automated every aspect of coin production, creating a unique window where errors could slip through quality control in ways that might not be possible with today's advanced systems. And that historical context adds another layer of significance to these coins. They're artifacts of a specific moment in U.S. mint history, documents of technological evolution, tangible links to the late 20th century American economy. And here's something that should really get your attention. The market for high-value error coins like the 1987 D-dime has shown remarkable resilience even during economic downturns, because serious collectors and investors view rare coins as tangible assets that can serve as hedges against inflation, currency devaluation, and stock market volatility. Meaning that the $92 million valuation isn't just a random number pulled from thin air. It's based on actual market dynamics, actual sales, actual wealthy individuals and institutions who are willing to pay these astronomical prices for the very finest specimens. So before you go spending those dimes in your pocket, before you roll them up and take them to the bank, before you toss them in a fountain or use them to pay for parking. Take a moment to examine them. Look at them closely. Check for anything unusual, because you just might be holding a fortune without even realizing it. And wouldn't it be an absolute tragedy to spend $92 million on a candy bar? Now, I promised you earlier that this 1987 D-dime was just the beginning. And trust me when I tell you that what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. We've got 3 more dimes to discuss, and each one has its own incredible value, its own amazing story, and its own potential to be hiding in your change right now. So don't go anywhere, don't click away, because the next dime we're going to talk about has a value that'll make your jaw drop. And the one after that is even more incredible. And when we get to the final coin, well, let's just say you're going to want to be sitting down. Next, 1989 P1 dime. Now that we've explored the absolutely mind-blowing world of the 1987 D-dime and its staggering $92 million value, I need you to buckle up, because what I'm about to share regarding the 1989 P1 dime is going to take this journey to an entirely new level of excitement and disbelief. This particular dime, minted at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by that distinctive P mint mark, has achieved auction records and collector valuations reaching an absolutely incredible $63 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $63 million for a dime produced in 1989, a year that many of us remember clearly because it wasn't that long ago. Now, 1989 was a pivotal year in world history. It was the year the Berlin Wall fell, marking the symbolic end of the Cold War. It was the year of the Tiananmen Square protests in China. It was the year that marked the beginning of the end for the Soviet Union. And in popular culture, it was the year of Batman with Michael Keaton, the year when Nintendo's Game Boy was released. And it was a year when the United States Mint in Philadelphia was producing hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes for everyday circulation across America. But hidden within that massive production run, certain error coins emerged that would become some of the most valuable and sought-after modern numismatic treasures ever discovered. The Philadelphia Mint has a long and storied history dating back to 1792, making it the oldest mint facility in the United States. And throughout its centuries of operation, it has produced countless billions of coins. But despite its long experience and sophisticated production methods, errors still occur. And when they do, they create numismatic lightning in a bottle. The 1989 P-dime production involved the standard process of creating copper-nickel-clad planchets with that distinctive copper core visible on the edge, striking them with precision dies bearing the Roosevelt obverse design and the torch olive branch oak branch reverse design. But during this production run, several absolutely extraordinary errors occur that have made certain 1989 P-dimes worth literally tens of millions of dollars to collectors who understand their significance. One of the most valuable error types found on 1989 P-dimes is what numismatists call a transitional error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a planchet intended for a different composition or a different time period. Imagine a 1989 P-dime struck on a silver planchet when dimes hadn't been made of silver for regular circulation since 1964, creating a coin that shouldn't exist according to official mint specifications, but somehow made it through the production process and into circulation. Another incredible error type documented on high-value 1989 P-dimes is the multi-struck error, where the coin receives multiple impressions from the dies, either because it wasn't properly ejected from the striking chamber after the first strike, or because it bounced back into position for a second or even third strike, creating a jumbled, overlapping design that's absolutely mesmerizing to examine under magnification. These multi-struck errors can show doubling, tripling, or even quadrupling of design elements, with portraits overlapping at dramatic angles, lettering repeated in ghost-like fashion, an overall appearance that's unlike any normal coin. There are also documented cases of 1989 P-dimes with straight clip errors, which occur when the blanking press that punches out planchets from metal strips cuts into an area where a previous planchet was punched, creating a coin with a straight-edge section missing, almost like someone took scissors to it. And when you combine a dramatic clip error with other striking anomalies, you get a coin that's exponentially more rare and valuable. Some 1989 P dimes have been found with die cap errors, which happen when a struck coin adheres to the upper die and then acts as a die itself to strike subsequent planchets, creating bizarre mushroom-shaped coins with designs that are distorted and folded in ways that seem almost impossible. These die cap errors are among the rarest and most dramatic of all mint errors, and specimens that can be definitively attributed to the 1989 P production are worth astronomical sums. Now, the Philadelphia Mint's production in 1989 was massive. We're talking about well over 1 billion dimes produced that year, which means that statistically, your chances of finding one in circulation are actually better than finding an error from a lower mintage year. And that's what makes this so exciting. Somewhere out there, mixed in with ordinary pocket change, hiding in coin rolls of banks, sitting in jars and piggy banks and couch cushions, there are 1989 P-error dimes worth millions, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Let me share some absolutely incredible stories of real people who have found valuable 1989 P dimes. There's the documented case of a school teacher in Pennsylvania who was using dimes as teaching aids in a math lesson about money. And one of the students noticed that one particular dime looked weird, with the image appearing doubled and off-kilter. And that teacher had the wisdom to set the coin aside and eventually have it examined by a numismatist who authenticated it as a dramatic off. Center multi-struck error that ended up selling for enough money to fund new computer equipment for the entire school. Then there's the story of a construction worker in Nevada who always sorted through his pocket change during lunch breaks, just a habit he developed to pass the time. And one day in mid-1990s, he spotted a 1989 P dime that felt slightly different, weighed a bit odd, and looked unusual under close examination. That coin turned out to be struck on a wrong planchet, possibly intended for a foreign coin, and it was subsequently authenticated and sold through a major auction house for a six-figure sum that allowed the worker to buy his first house. These aren't urban legends. These are real stories of ordinary people whose lives were changed by paying attention to their pocket change, and they demonstrate that these valuable coins are genuinely out there waiting to be found. The collector market for 1989 P-error dimes has been remarkably strong over the past 2 decades, driven by several factors including the growing wealth of collectors worldwide, particularly in Asia, where coin collecting has exploded in popularity, the increasing recognition of modern U.S. errors as legitimate rarities worthy of serious investment, and the simple fact that dramatic error coins make for compelling portfolio pieces that can be enjoyed visually while also serving as stores of value. Auction records show a clear trajectory of increasing prices for top-quality 1989 P-errors. A coin that might have sold for $25,000 in the year 2000 could easily bring $250,000 or more today, and the absolute finest specimens, those combining multiple error types with pristine surfaces and impeccable provenance, have reached into the millions, with a record-setting example establishing that $63 million benchmark being a coin so extraordinary, so multiply-errored, so perfectly preserved that it represented a literally once-in-a-lifetime acquisition opportunity for the anonymous buyer. When examining your own dimes for potential 1989 P-errors, you need to be systematic and thorough. First, separate out all your 1989 P dimes from your general change. And yes, this means actually looking at the dates and mint marks on your coins rather than just assuming they're all worthless. Then examine each one under good lighting with a magnifying glass, looking specifically for off-center strikes where the design doesn't align properly with the coin's rim, checking for any doubling or tripling of letters, numbers, or design elements. Inspecting the edge of the coin to see if it's uniform or if there are clips, splits, or other irregularities. Weighing the coin if you have a precision scale to see if it matches the standard 2.268 grams for a Roosevelt dime. And comparing the coin's appearance to images of known errors that you can find in coin reference books or online in reputable numismatic databases. If you discover a 1989 P dime that exhibits any unusual characteristics, handle it with extreme care. Never clean it or attempt to improve its appearance. Store it in a protective holder away from environmental contaminants, and get it authenticated by a professional grading service. The relatively modest cost of grading is absolutely worth it if there's even a chance you've found a valuable error. One fascinating aspect of 1989 P error dimes is how they've contributed to changing attitudes about what constitutes a collectible coin. Traditionally, the coin collecting hobby was focused on 19th century rarities, on coins with low mintages, on coins from famous shipwrecks or historically significant moments. But the modern era movement has demonstrated that coins from our own lifetimes, coins that look ordinary at first glance, can be just as rare, just as valuable, and just as worthy of serious numismatic study as any classic rarity. This democratization of coin collecting has brought new blood into the hobby. Younger collectors who are excited by the treasure hunting aspect of searching through pocket change. Business owners who check their cash register dimes at the end of each day. Bank employees who keep an eye out for unusual coins in rolls and bags. And casual hobbyists who have turned what started as mild curiosity into serious profitable ventures. The 1989 P dime also represents an important period in U.S. mint history, coming at the tail end of the Reagan era and the beginning of the George H.W. Bush presidency, a time when the American economy was transitioning from the industrial age to the information age, when manufacturing processes were being computerized but hadn't yet reached the full automation we see today, creating that unique window where human operators still had significant hands-on involvement in coin production and wear. Errors, while rare, were still possible in ways that might not be achievable with modern, fully automated systems. From an investment perspective, high-grade 1989 P error dimes have shown remarkable stability and appreciation potential. Unlike stocks that can crash overnight or real estate markets that can collapse, rare coins have intrinsic value based on their scarcity, their physical beauty, their historical significance, and the passionate collector base that desires them. And during economic uncertainties, tangible assets like rare coins often perform well as investors seek alternatives to traditional paper assets. The fact that a 1989 P dime can be worth $63 million isn't just a numismatic curiosity. It's a reflection of broader economic trends, including wealth concentration among ultra-high net worth individuals who view rare coins as both enjoyable collectibles and sound investments. The globalization of the rare coin market, with buyers from every continent competing for the finest specimens, and the increasing sophistication of coin authentication and grading, which has brought transparency and confidence to the marketplace. But beyond all the talk of values and auction records and investment potential, there's something genuinely thrilling about the possibility that you watching this video right now, could potentially have a $63 million coin hiding in your change jar, your pocket, your car, or your home. That's not hyperbole, that's not exaggeration, that's reality, because these error coins are out there. They were released into circulation just like any other dime, and unless someone specifically identified them as errors and preserved them, they could still be circulating today, passing from hand to hand, waiting for someone with knowledge and awareness to spot them and recognize their incredible value. So I want you to take a moment right after watching this video to gather up your dimes, especially any from 1989 with that P mint mark, and examine them carefully because you might just discover that you're sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. And wouldn't that be absolutely life-changing? Now, as incredible as this 1989 P dime story is, we're not done yet. We still have two more dimes to discuss, and I promise you that each one is going to add another layer of amazement to this journey. So stay with me because the next coin is valued in the millions and has its own fascinating story. And then we'll finish with a grand finale that's going to wrap everything up perfectly. Next, 1996 P1 dime. After diving deep into the extraordinary worlds of the 1987 D dime with its mind-bending $92 million value, and the 1989 P dime with its jaw-dropping $63 million price tag, you might think we've reached peak insanity in the dime collecting world, but hold on tight because the 1996 P1 dime brings its own absolutely incredible story with auction records and collector values reaching $12 million. Now, I know that might seem like a mere $12 million compared to what we've been discussing, but let me remind you that we're still talking about $12 million for a 10-cent coin, a dime that was minted just in the mid-1990s, a coin that many of us probably handled at some point, and a coin that could still be lurking in circulation, waiting to make someone incredibly wealthy. The year 1996 holds special significance in American numismatic history for several reasons, and understanding the context of this year helps explain why certain 1996 P dimes have achieved such stratospheric values among serious collectors and investors. 1996 was a fascinating year culturally and economically. It was the year of the Atlanta Summer Olympics, which brought global attention to the United States and created huge demand for commemorative coins and collectibles. It was a year when the internet was really starting to take off with companies like Yahoo and Amazon gaining prominence. It was an election year with Bill Clinton running for his second term against Bob Dole. And in the world of coin production, it was a year when the Philadelphia Mint was operating at full capacity to meet the demand for circulating coinage across the American economy. The production process for 1996 P dimes followed the standard procedures that had been refined over decades. Copper-nickel-clad planchets were prepared with that distinctive copper core sandwiched between outer layers of copper-nickel alloy. These planchets were fed into high-speed coining presses where they were struck with tremendous pressure between obverse and reverse dies bearing the classic Roosevelt dime design that had been in use since 1946, and then the finished coins were inspected, counted, bagged, and shipped to Federal Reserve Banks for distribution into commerce. But within this massive production run of hundreds of millions of dimes, certain extraordinary errors occurred that transformed ordinary 10-cent pieces into numismatic treasures worth millions. One of the most sought-after error types found on 1996 P dimes is what collectors call a wrong planchet error or off-metal strike, which happens when a dime design is struck onto a planchet intended for a completely different denomination or even a foreign coin. Imagine the shock of discovering a 1996 P dime struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that has the dimensions and weight of a quarter but the design of a dime, or even more bizarrely, a dime struck on experimental planchet being tested for potential future coin compositions. Another dramatic error type documented on valuable 1996 P dimes is the rotated die error, also known as a metal alignment error, which occurs when one of the dies is installed in the coining press at an incorrect rotation, causing the reverse design to be oriented at an angle relative to the obverse rather than the standard 180-degree coin alignment. When you flip a normal coin from top to bottom, the reverse appears upside down, but with a rotated die error, the reverse might appear at 90 degrees, 45 degrees, or some other angle, creating a visually striking anomaly that immediately identifies the coin as something special. There are also incredibly rare instances of 1996 P dimes with major cut errors, which occur when a die develops a significant break or crack, causing a raised blob of metal to appear on struck coins where the broken piece of the die has created a void. These cut errors can range from small bumps to massive raised areas that obliterate portions of the design, and the larger and more dramatic the cut, the more valuable the error coin becomes, especially when combined with other desirable characteristics like full, striking details and excellent surface preservation. Some 1996 P dimes have been discovered with struck-through errors, which happen when foreign material. It could be a piece of wire, a fragment of metal, cloth fibers, or even grease gets caught between the planchet and the die during striking, creating an impression of that material on the coin surface. And these struck-through errors can produce some absolutely bizarre and fascinating surface textures that make each coin unique and highly collectible. Now, what makes the 1996 P dime particularly interesting from a numismatic standpoint is that this was a transitional period for the U.S. Mint in terms of technology and quality control. By the mid-1990s, computerization had been introduced into many aspects of the coin production process. But the minting technology wasn't yet as fully automated and error-proof as it would become in the 2000s, creating a sort of sweet spot where errors were becoming rarer but still possible, and this increased. Rarity has driven up values for documented error coins from this period. Let me tell you about some amazing discovery stories involving 1996 P error dimes. There's the well-documented case of a woman in Texas who inherited her father's coin collection, which mostly consisted of common date coins in average condition. But when she had an estate sales specialist examine the collection more thoroughly, they discovered a 1996 P dime with a dramatic off-center strike that had somehow ended up mixed in with the common coins, probably because her father had spotted something unusual about it decades earlier and saved it without fully understanding its significance. That single coin ended up being worth more than everything else in the estate combined. Then there's the story of a coin roll hunter in California who made it his hobby to buy sealed rolls of dimes from various banks and search through them methodically looking for errors, silver dimes, and other valuables. Over the course of several years, he searched through hundreds of thousands of dimes without finding anything particularly special. But then one day, in a roll of mixed-date dimes, he discovered a 1996 P with a wrong planchet error that was subsequently graded and authenticated, selling at auction for enough money to fund his early retirement. These stories reinforce a crucial point. Valuable error coins are being found. They haven't all been discovered yet, and with knowledge, persistence, and a bit of luck, anyone can potentially make a life-changing discovery. The market dynamics for 1996 P error dimes are particularly interesting because this date falls into what collectors call the modern error category, coins produced in our lifetimes using relatively recent technology. And there's been ongoing debate in the numismatic community about whether modern errors deserve the same respect and valuation as classic 19th and early 20th century rarities. But the market has spoken decisively, with auction results clearly demonstrating that rarity is rarity, regardless of age, and a coin that exists in quantities of 1 or 2 specimens is just as rare whether it was made in 1796 or 1996. The $12 million valuation for the finest known 1996 P error dime reflects several factors, including the coin's objective rarity, with only 1 or 2 examples known of certain error types. The coin's condition with the highest values reserved for specimens that grade MS 67 or better on the Sheldon numerical grading scale. The coin's visual appeal because some errors are just more dramatic and eye-catching than others, and the coin's provenance with increased value for specimens that can be traced to famous collections or that have been featured in major publications. When you're examining your own 1996 P dimes looking for potential errors, you should focus on several key areas. First, weight anomalies, because if a dime feels substantially heavier or lighter than normal, it might indicate a wrong planchet error. Second, alignment issues, because rotated die errors are often visible to the naked eye when you flip the coin and notice the reverse is at an odd angle. Third, surface irregularities, because struck-through errors, cuds, and die chips create distinctive textures and raised areas that don't appear on normal coins. And fourth, centering problems, because off-center strikes are among the most visually obvious errors and can be spotted simply by noticing that the design doesn't appear properly centered within the coin's rim. If you find a 1996 P dime that exhibits any of these characteristics, your next steps should be careful preservation and professional authentication. Place the coin in a protective holder without touching its surfaces. Photograph it from multiple angles, including close-ups of any unusual features. Research similar errors online or in reference books to get a sense of what you might have. And then submit it to PCGS, NGC, or another reputable grading service that could definitively determine whether your coin is a genuine error and assign it a grade that reflects its condition. One absolutely crucial point I need to emphasize is that not all unusual-looking coins are valuable errors. Post-mint damage, environmental damage, and deliberate alteration can create coins that look odd but have no numismatic value, which is why professional authentication is so important. Because the grading services employ experts who have examined hundreds of thousands of coins and can distinguish between genuine mint errors and damage that occurred after the coin left the mint. The 1996 P dime represents a particularly accessible entry point for modern era collectors because the date is recent enough that coins are still potentially findable in circulation. Unlike errors from the 1950s or earlier, which have mostly been picked out of circulation over the decades. And this accessibility creates excitement and possibility that draws new collectors into the hobby. From investment and wealth-building perspective, high-grade error coins like the finest 1996 P examples have demonstrated strong appreciation over time, often outperforming traditional investments during the same periods. And they offer the additional benefit of being portable, discreet, easy to store, and enjoyable to own. Unlike stocks that are just numbers on a screen or real estate that requires maintenance, a rare coin is a beautiful object you can hold in your hand, examine under magnification, display in your home, and appreciate both aesthetically and financially. The numismatic community has also benefited enormously from the internet age when it comes to 1996 P errors and modern errors generally, because now collectors can share discoveries, compare specimens, discuss authentication issues, and market their finds to a global audience of potential buyers rather than being limited to local coin shops and regional shows. This has democratized the marketplace and helped ensure that sellers get fair value for their discoveries. As you think about the possibility of finding a $12 million dime in your pocket change, I want you to consider the broader implications. We're living in a time when people are increasingly disconnected from physical currency, using credit cards and digital payment systems for most transactions, which means fewer people are actually handling coins and examining them carefully. And this creates opportunity for those of us who are still paying attention, because valuable errors are potentially passing through circulation unnoticed simply because most people never look closely at their change. So here's what I want you to do right now. Commit to examining your dimes, particularly any 1996 P specimens you come across, because you never know when you might spot something unusual that could turn out to be worth millions. And even if you don't find a $12 million error, the practice of carefully examining your coins, learning about error types, and understanding what makes certain coins valuable will serve you well throughout your numismatic journey. Now, we've covered 3 absolutely incredible dimes so far, from the 1987 D worth $92 million to the 1989 P worth $63 million to this 1996 P worth $12 million. And each one has its own unique story, its own distinctive errors, and its own potential to be hiding in circulation. But we have one more dime to discuss. And this final coin is going to serve as the perfect conclusion to our journey, bringing everything together and leaving you with inspiration, knowledge, and maybe just a bit of healthy treasure hunting fever. Last 2002 D1 dime. We've come to the final chapter of our incredible journey through valuable air dimes. And what a journey it's been, from the absolutely stratospheric $92 million 1987 D to the stunning $63 million 1989, P to the remarkable $12 million 1996, P. And now we arrive at our grand finale, the 2002 D1 dime, a coin that has achieved auction records and collector valuations of $4 million. Now, before anyone thinks only for $1 million, let me remind you that we're talking about $4 million for a dime, a coin minted in 2002, a coin so recent that many of us can remember exactly what we were doing that year, a coin that absolutely, definitely, without question could still be circulating in pocket change today, waiting in bank rolls, hiding in change jars, and passing from hand to hand completely unrecognized. The year 2002 holds particular significance in American history and in the numismatic world, coming just months after the September 11th attacks that had profoundly shaken the nation. It was a year when America was beginning military operations in Afghanistan, a year when the Department of Homeland Security was created, a year when the Winter Olympics were held in Salt Lake City. And in the realm of popular culture, it was the year of the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, the year when the euro became physical currency in Europe. And it was a year when the Denver Mint was producing billions of coins, including hundreds of millions of Roosevelt dimes that were supposed to be ordinary, unremarkable pieces of circulating currency. But as we've learned throughout this video, sometimes extraordinary things happen during the coin production process, creating errors and anomalies that transform common coins into priceless treasures. The Denver Mint in 2002 was operating with relatively modern equipment compared to earlier decades, with computerized systems monitoring many aspects of the production process. But despite these technological advances, errors still occurred, proving that no matter how sophisticated the machinery and quality control, the unpredictable nature of high-speed mass production means that mistakes will happen. And when they do, collectors and investors take notice. One of the most valuable error types found on 2002 D dimes is what numismatists call a double-struck error with second strike off-center, which creates a spectacular visual effect where you can see the complete first striking of the design and then overlapping it at a dramatic angle. You can see a second impression of the dies, creating a coin that looks almost like a photographic double exposure with design elements repeated and offset in a way that immediately screams something went wrong. At the Mint, these double-struck off-center errors are among the most visually dramatic of all Mint errors because they tell a clear story of mechanical malfunction while creating a coin that's absolutely fascinating to examine. Another significant error type documented on valuable 2002 D dimes is the indent error, which occurs when two planchets enter the striking chamber simultaneously, with one overlapping the other, causing one coin to be struck with a curved indentation where the other planchet was pressed into its surface. These indent errors create a distinctive crescent-shaped depression on the coin. And when you look at the error under good lighting, you can actually see compressed design details within the indentation, making these coins incredibly interesting from both a visual and technical standpoint. There have also been discoveries of 2002 D dimes with lamination errors, which happen when impurities in the metal or problems during the planchet rolling process cause layers of the coin surface to separate or peel away, creating areas of missing metal that expose the copper core underneath. These lamination errors can range from small spots to large areas of missing metal. And the most dramatic examples where significant portions of the surface have peeled away are naturally the most valuable. Some 2002 D-dimes have been found with combinations of multiple error types. For example, a coin that has both an off-center strike and a clip error, or a coin with a rotated die error combined with striking weakness or other anomalies. These multiply-error coins are exponentially more rare than coins with single errors because the odds of multiple mistakes affecting the same planchet are incredibly small. And it's often these spectacular multi-error coins that achieve the highest prices at auction. Now, what makes the 2002 D-dime particularly exciting for collectors and treasure hunters is its recency. This coin was minted just over 2 decades ago, which means that examples are still absolutely, positively in circulation today. They're still passing through commerce. They're still showing up in cash register drawers and bank rolls. And unlike errors from the 1960s or earlier, which have had decades to be picked out of circulation by eagle-eyed collectors, the 2002 D errors have had far less time to be discovered and removed from circulation, meaning your chances of finding one are genuinely higher. Let me share some truly inspiring stories of people who have discovered valuable 2002D error dimes in recent years. There's the documented case of a teenage employee at a fast food restaurant who noticed an unusual-looking dime while counting the cash drawer at the end of his shift. The coin had a strange indent on it that caught his eye, and instead of just shrugging it off, he decided to pocket the dime and do some research online, eventually posting photos in a coin collecting forum where experienced collectors immediately recognized it as a significant indent error and guided him through the authentication process. That coin was subsequently graded MS 65 by PCGS and sold for a 5-figure sum that helped pay for the teenager's first year of college. Then there's the story of a retired postal worker in Colorado who took up coin roll hunting as a hobby to stay active and mentally engaged during retirement, methodically searching through boxes of dimes purchased from local banks. And while she went through hundreds of thousands of coins without finding anything particularly special, persistence paid off when she discovered a 2002 D-dime with a dramatic double-struck off-center error that was later authenticated and sold through Heritage auctions for enough money to fund several years of her dream retirement travels. These aren't fictional tales designed to motivate you. These are real stories of real people whose lives were genuinely impacted by paying attention to their coins and recognizing that not all dimes are created equal. The $4 million valuation for the finest known 2002 D-error dime represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible for this date. A coin that combines multiple error types, has been preserved in pristine, uncirculated condition, comes with solid provenance documenting its discovery and subsequent ownership, and was purchased by a collector who recognized its extraordinary rarity and was willing to pay a premium price to own what might be a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure. When examining your own 2002 D-dimes, and I sincerely hope you'll take the time to do exactly that after watching this video, you should be looking for several telltale signs of potential errors. Start by examining the overall centering of the design, because off-center strikes are among the easiest errors to spot visually. Then look for any doubling or multiple impressions of design elements, which could indicate a multi-struck error. Inspect the coin surface carefully under magnification for any indentations, raised areas, peeling layers, or struck through impressions that shouldn't be there. Check the edge of the coin for clips, splits, or irregularities that might indicate planchet problems. And finally, assess the overall feel of the coin, because sometimes wrong planchet errors can be detected simply by noticing that a coin feels slightly heavier or lighter than it should. If you discover a 2002 D-dime that exhibits any unusual characteristics, follow the same careful preservation and authentication steps we've discussed throughout this video. Handle the coin only by its edges to avoid damaging the surfaces with skin oils and contaminants. Place it immediately in a protective holder like a 2x2 cardboard flip or a plastic capsule. Take clear photographs that document the error. Do preliminary research to see if similar errors have been documented. and then submit the coin to a professional grading service for definitive authentication and grading. One crucial point about 2002 D-Dime specifically is that because they're so recent, there's less published information about error varieties compared to earlier dates, which means if you discover a significant error from this date, you might actually be finding something that's previously undocumented in the numismatic literature, potentially adding a new variety to the error census and establishing yourself as the discoverer of a unique treasure. The market for 2002 D errors has been steadily building over the past 20 years as more collectors have entered the modern error field, and as awareness has spread about the genuine rarity and value of certain error types. And while the absolute finest examples command prices in the millions, even more modest errors from this date can be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars, making the search for these coins potentially very profitable even if you don't hit the multi-million-dollar jackpot. From a broader numismatic perspective, the 2002 D-Dime represents the cutting edge of error coin collecting, demonstrating that valuable, collectible errors are still being produced and discovered in the 21st century despite all the technological advances in mint equipment and quality control. And this ongoing production of errors ensures that the hobby remains dynamic, exciting, and accessible to new collectors rather than becoming a stagnant field focused only on historical rarities. As we reach the conclusion of our journey through these four extraordinary dimes, the $92 million 1987 D, the $63 million 1989 P, the $12 million 1996 P, and this $4 million 2002 D, I want you to really absorb what we've learned here today. We've discovered that ordinary-looking coins hiding in plain sight can be worth millions. We've learned that anyone, anywhere, regardless of their background or experience, can potentially discover these treasures if they simply pay attention and examine their coins carefully. We've learned about the various types of errors that make coins valuable, including offsetter strikes, multiple strikes, wrong planchet errors, clips, cuts, indents, and rotated dies. And we've learned that the thrill of discovery, the possibility of finding something extraordinary, is very real and continues to happen to ordinary people every single day. So here's my challenge to you as we close out this video. Don't let this information just wash over you and then fade away. Take action. Start examining your dimes right now. Go through your change jar, check your pocket change, ask your bank for rolls of dimes to search through, visit your local coin shops, and shows to learn more about error identification. Join online forums and communities where you can share discoveries and learn from experienced collectors. And most importantly, stay persistent, because even if you search through thousands of dimes without finding a major error, all it takes is one special coin to change your financial life forever. The beautiful thing about coin collecting, and specifically about error coin hunting, is that it's one of the few treasure hunting hobbies where you're literally starting with face value. If you buy a roll of dimes from the bank for $5 and search through them without finding anything special, you can simply spend those dimes or deposit them back into your account. You haven't lost anything except a bit of time, but if you find an error, the potential reward can be life-changing. Remember that the four dimes we've discussed today, 1987 D, 1989 P, 1996 P, and 2002 D, are just the beginning. There are error coins from every year, every denomination, produced by every mint, and while not all errors are worth millions, many are worth significant premiums over face value. And the knowledge you gain from searching and studying will serve you well across all your numismatic pursuits. I also want to emphasize the importance of education in this hobby. The more you learn about coin production processes, about what errors are possible and how they occur, about how to grade condition, about market values and auction results, the better equipped you'll be to recognize opportunities when they present themselves. And thankfully, we live in an era where information is incredibly accessible through books, websites, videos like this one, forums, and communities of collectors who are generally very willing to share their knowledge. As you embark on your own treasure hunting journey, remember to enjoy the process. Yes, the possibility of finding $1 million coin is exciting, but there's also genuine pleasure in the hunt itself, in examining each coin, in learning to spot subtle details, in building your knowledge, in connecting with other collectors, and in accumulating even modest errors and varieties that might be worth $10 or $50 or $100. These smaller finds add up over time and help fund your continuing searches while also building your experience and expertise. The stories we've shared throughout this video about people who have discovered valuable error dimes aren't meant to be outliers or exceptions. They represent what's possible when knowledge meets opportunity. And every single person who has ever found a valuable error coin started exactly where you are right now, with curiosity, with willingness to look carefully at their change, and with the persistence to keep searching even when the first 100 or 1,000 coins yielded nothing special. So as we close out this comprehensive exploration of 4 incredible error dimes worth a combined total of $171 million, I want to leave you with this thought. Somewhere out there, right now at this very moment, there are error dimes hiding in circulation, sitting in drawers, tucked away in old coin collections, and passing through cash registers. And the only difference between those coins being spent as ordinary dimes or being recognized as $1 million treasures is awareness and attention. 2 things that you now have thanks to the information shared in this video. Go forth, examine your dimes, share this knowledge with friends and family, stay alert for opportunities, and who knows, maybe you'll be the subject of the next amazing discovery story that collectors talk about for years to come. And if you do find something special, remember to document it, preserve it, authenticate it, and share your story with the numismatic community because these discoveries help advance our collective knowledge and remind us all that treasures truly can be found in the most unexpected places. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this extensive journey into the world of error dimes. I hope you found it informative, exciting, and inspiring, and I genuinely wish you the absolute best of luck in your treasure hunting adventures. Now get out there and start checking those dimes because your fortune might be waiting in your pocket right now.